Welcome to the Conshy Coaching Podcast, where we take the concepts of mindset and energy leadership coaching and make them real so that you can get out of your own way, beat the burnout, and create a life and career that you love. I'm your host, Jenn Masse. Hello, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Conshy Coaching Podcast. Today, I have Elise Krikau joining me. Elise and I went through the same coach training program, and not only have we become fast friends, but I've also had the privilege to coach her over the past few months. Elise is an incredibly passionate, high-energy, heart-centered individual who takes a no-nonsense approach to life. When I need candid feedback on a blog post or a quick mental breakthrough, she's the first person I call. Before we dive in, I do want to mention that Elise and I are recording this during the coronavirus mandatory social distancing period, so I do apologize in advance if you hear either of our dogs bark or any other background noises. Elise, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Jen. I'm excited to be here.
I am so incredibly excited to have you on today's episode. And more importantly, I'm excited because we are going to be talking about the difference between having a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset, which is something you and I have talked about a lot in the past. But before we dive into that, I would love if you could just introduce yourself a little bit further and tell us what you're up to now.
All right. Thanks, Jen. I am a fundraiser by trade, which was an evolution from my previous career, which was in exercise physiology. I get a lot of questions about that career transition, but trust me, it makes sense when I explain it. But I've been in fundraising since April of 2007. So I'm officially past the decade mark, and I've been in various types of fundraising and also consulting. So I've seen all sides of it, and it's been quite fun. It's been educational for me to be in different sectors of fundraising, and then also on the consulting side, which exposed me to a variety of different organizations and seen what they go through as nonprofits. And while I was consulting, that's when I decided to go into coaching and become a coach that focuses on working with people in the nonprofit space, because having navigated different organizations, different cultures, I've seen that nonprofits tend to have a lot of turnover. A lot of people fall into fundraising. That's the first answer I get from somebody when I ask, how did you end up in fundraising? The answer 9 times out of 10 is I fell into it. And so as I was navigating some life change and being coached myself, I decided to go into coaching and get certified through iPEC. And that's obviously where you and I met. But I thought there's a need out there for people who, quote unquote, fall into fundraising or who are promoted into leadership positions, and they just haven't been really given the tools to navigate that. And so that's why I decided to really focus on individuals who work in the nonprofit sector and help them by giving them resources how to develop as a leader or simply make a transition from one career into the next. And where I work, we do have our own kind of homegrown leadership program. And my goal for that is to get more involved from a coaching perspective, because there are people throughout our organization who are moving into different positions that may need and could benefit from a coach as well. So,
yeah, that's awesome. And I think there's so much to touch on there, especially the fact that so many people just fall into a fundraising role without the right tools to help them really thrive. Mm-hmm. And I think that also happens in other industries as well. I know I saw it in my previous career. I've seen that happen to a lot of my clients. So I think it's a really relevant topic. And I love how, your heart-centeredness, your level 4, and just how you take it to that next level of wanting to step into a role that can really help other people thrive in whatever career that they end up with. So how has energy leadership helped you not only in your own career as a fundraiser, but how has it helped you help other people in the fundraising space?
I have to say that coaching, although I'm doing it very much part-time, and as you know, I'm still completing my certification, but I tell people all the time that having gone into the coaching program, I have come out very, very different. And I approach things very differently now. And I feel that what I learned in iPEC has helped me be a better fundraiser. And maybe I was doing some of the things that we learned, but didn't realize it, or it's made me more aware. And when I find myself in a situation with a potential donor or a leadership conversation, I find myself saying, get curious, ask questions, ask open ended questions. And I believe it's made me a better fundraiser and a better wife and stepmom and friend, to be honest, because it helps me approach things from a very different way. And a lot of that is the awareness that we've built around not only ourselves, but those around us, and really working on and honing our empathy skills and our search to and seek to understand what might be going around you. And I have to say that recently I had a situation where it was a confrontational situation. And I think you remember this, Jen, but it was kind of a negative email sent to me with a bunch of people copied on it. My approach to it was, this isn't about me. This is about that person. And I don't think people really understand that. For me, that's a big deal. I would have been in a panic mode previously. I would have been responding right away and coming at it from an emotional place. And I think that, and I know that coaching has helped me really work through that and say, you know what, I'm going to wait 2 days. It's Friday, and I'm going to respond when I'm ready, and come at it from a place of strength and knowing that this isn't about me. It's about that person. And I'm not going to take that on, take that energy on. And it was a very freeing and empowering moment. And I can tell you that those of you who know me, including my husband, were very, very impressed with the way I handled that situation.
Yeah, I do remember that. And I do remember that, when we talked through that and just the mental clarity and emotional intelligence that you had around that to say, you know what, I need to pause here because I'm about to react and I would rather respond. And I remember we talked about that one foundation principle, which is what people say and do is about them. How we respond is about us.
Mm-hmm.
So having that awareness to say, you know what, like, I don't want to get down to their level or meet them where they are. I want to choose who I am in this moment. And I'm going to choose to breathe and be curious and respond at a higher energy level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great segue into the topic of abundance versus scarcity,
Mm-hmm.
because what you were talking about earlier about, being curious and asking open-ended questions and having that level of awareness, that really allows you to approach things with an abundance mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in the fundraising space, you and I have talked about this before. Typically, things are approached with a scarcity mindset. It's not easy to go ask a donor for money without having the scarcity mindset of, oh, they only have so many pennies to give me. So I'm curious, how does this show up for you at work?
Well, that's been an evolution for me as well. In terms of asking people for money, I think it's knowing that what we have and our mission, what we're doing, is relevant and important. And I think coming from it from a place of, we want you to be part of the solution. We feel that we do amazing work, and you can see the impact visibly. It's tangible. And for those of you listening, I work for a conservation organization, and we put a lot of literal work into the ground, and going to people and talking about what we're doing, sharing the successes, and then asking them to be part of it going forward is coming from a place of, hey, we're awesome, we're doing great work, and you should consider supporting us in an even more meaningful way. And I've really had to mature as a fundraiser through the past, 13 years, to get to that place and not feel that I'm not worthy, right?
Mhm.
And I once had a gentleman say to me that fundraisers or development folks are socialists preying on capitalists. And I remember just being taken aback by that comment. And I thought, okay, there's some validity to that comment. And I can laugh at things. I don't really take things too personally in terms of being offensive, but I stepped back and thought about it, and I thought, no, but what we're doing is changing the world.
Mm.
And nonprofit work is important, and it fills a gap. And you see that right now in terms of COVID-19. And you see the food banks, one of which I worked for a few years ago. You see those food banks stepping in and filling a gap for people who aren't going to be getting meals, the older adults and the kids who rely on meal programs at schools. And we fill a gap. And I know that our organization fills a gap between what the government's doing in terms of conservation and private landowners and people who want to have access to public land. And we really have an important role in that. And we can't do our job if we don't have financial support from people. And I think there in you have is scarcity too, right?
Mhm.
Scarcity of land, scarcity of quality land. But you can reframe that scarcity to make it such a positive, right? And that's where I come from with what we have to say is important, and please listen to me. I'm not going to waste your time. And that's, again, that's a long winding answer to my evolution, but what we do is important, and I'm not going to start to second guess that and have my hand out like I don't deserve it.
Right. Right. And I think that's so important with the worthiness comment.
Mhm.
I think when people tend to approach thing with a scarcity mindset, it's I don't have enough. I'm not enough. Like I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough XYZ.
Mhm.
So therefore I'm going to start scrounging and hoarding and
Yes.
or not trying. And if you flip that on its head, I think a major aha moment for me was when I realized that the opposite of I don't have enough is I have enough. It's not abundance isn't I have more than enough. I have more than what I need. It's not a place of greed. It's literally just coming from a place of I have enough. I am enough.
Nodding along here with you, like, yes, preach.
Yeah.
But it's true. It is. I'm tired of development officers being looked at as salespeople, and not that salespeople are bad, but we get kind of put in this like, oh, she's going to shake me down for money. And no, I'm going to come to you with an opportunity to affect change. And you can be part of something pretty amazing. And I think that's what it comes down to, saying, like, my job isn't just me going out there and doing random acts of solicitations asking for money. There's a lot that goes into our work, and there's a lot of emotional intelligence. There's a lot of listening, active listening, and finding out what makes someone tick
Mm.
and connecting someone. And I always say matchmaking, but matchmaking people with a mission. And I know that not everyone's going to want to support the mission where I work. And that's okay. But I hope that they'll consider supporting a mission that really resonates with their values. But I'm kind of done feeling like I have to chase after people, and that I'm not worthy, and that my ask isn't worthy, nor is my time.
Mm.
So, but that's been a long progression.
Yeah. And you know what's so interesting about that is as I hear you shifting into that higher energy level of, I just want to connect you to some cause, even if it's not my cause. I want to connect you to a cause. I want you to see that you're a piece of this greater puzzle, just like I'm a piece of this greater puzzle, which is very level 6 energy coming from that broader place of we're all a piece of the puzzle and a piece of life as we know it. Um, I am curious when we think about scarcity versus abundance mindset. Again, this is something that we've talked about before, and it might be a trigger for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you weigh in on fundraisers and the giveaway aspect and how that relates to fundraising from a point of scarcity?
When you say giveaway, do you mean like giving away like address labels and other things?
Yes. So if I donate $25, I'll get a bag, or if I donate $200, I'll get a sweatshirt.
Yeah, you went right in there, Jen.
I did.
Trigger. Thanks. um, so I, 'cause I currently work for an organization where There's a lot of transaction, right? There's a lot of, if you give us this, we'll give you that, right? And there's an opportunity for that. And unfortunately, the nature of the organization I work for, this is a culture, not just with us, but with this sector. So many organizations in the environmental conservation sector are doing just that. So how do you strike out and be different, right? When others are sending out vests and knives and things to their constituents. There's a fear of changing that. And so this is going to lead to actually probably some really good energy discussion
Mm.
is changing a culture, right? There is a fear that if we don't send out the tchotchkes, that, and not that they're actually high quality where we are, just to be clear, not that I'm doing an ad for that, but we do send out high quality merchandise. But there's a fear that if we stop doing that, we're going to go off the rails, and that we're not going to have success in terms of the fundraising or membership aspect of our organization. And that's a fear.
Mhm.
And that goes back to scarcity, right? And in terms of we're not going to have enough, it's going to totally mess up our line item, and we're not going to be able to fund things. And it just, it's a domino effect. And so there is more research out there talking about how people don't want the premiums. They're wanting to know that their gifts go toward the full mission, right?
Mhm.
And I do feel that to change that culture, though, we still have conditioned a lot of our members and constituents to give and then get something back. So we're slowly going to have to change that. And that's not going to be an overnight cold turkey situation. That's going to be over time putting in asks that are purely mission related without the gift, right?
Mhm.
And I think that culture shift is not only going to be internal but external, and it's fascinating to watch it. And I've had to really be careful about how I approach it, because I think when you walk into a situation in an organization and you're a fresh set of eyes and a different opinion, you can't come in and do scorched earth. You have to come in, you have to listen and ask, and then work together to shift that culture. And I think we as an organization are trying to do just that, but it's going to take time based on that fear. And then, which like I said earlier, I believe relates to the scarcity of resources.
Yeah, and fear of change is a huge trigger
Mhm.
for the scarcity mindset because to your point, it's I know what I have, but if I change that, I won't have enough of whether it be fundraising resources for you to go do what you do or time or whatever. Fear of change comes from the scarcity mindset. And I think it's interesting because when I asked the question, I was thinking of it more from a fundraiser's perspective, but I didn't even think about the other side of the coin, which is the people giving money.
Mhm.
There's two types of people. There's the people who give from abundance, which is, please take my money. I want to see 100% of it go to the cause. But then there's other people who they want to know they're getting something in return. And if they can't
Mhm.
see what you're doing to save the land or the water, they're going to want that jacket in return to be like, I gave you my hard earned money. I want something, what's in it for me type thing. Cause sometimes the cause isn't enough. And approaching something with abundance is starting to operate from a transformational perspective. So rather than this fear of change, it's really embracing what are the opportunities here and how can I step into this point of transformation to help the greater good.
Mhm. And I just want to add to that because I was just sharing this with a colleague before you and I started talking, and I shared a story about a recent event we did, and I did kind of the quote unquote pitch, if you will, about supporting us and supporting not only the national priorities but also the local ones. So each state has its own set of needs, right? And I did this pitch and I led in with mission. I focused on that. I talked about our memberships that do include premiums, But then I also talked about state initiatives. And I think the biggest win is, we didn't raise $50,000 at this event, but the biggest wins that event were two of the people opted out of the premiums because it took away from 100% going to the mission.
Mm.
And then another person also matched that amount with a state specific gift so that it could go right into the state and be used for those programs. And I share this because it's all about how you couched it, right? And I think if you don't lead in with it's transactional and you get this if you give that, and you lead in with that, as you said earlier, heart-centered approach to it, saying, we're doing great work, here's the impact, you can be part of the vision of the state, the vision of the national organization. And we hope you will join us in this because there's more work to be done.
Mm.
And it was incredibly exciting. And I've shared the stories with some of my colleagues, and they're excited because we haven't maybe gone that way before. Maybe we have, I don't know. But I'm the first development officer in the East region, so I guess I can say we probably have where I'm at. But those are big wins. So those aren't big dollars, but is it a big win, right?
Yeah. And when you think about energy leadership to tie it all in, that's a true win-win. That's level 5 energy right there because it's a win for your organization because you now have these extra funds for these specific grants, but it's also a win for the person donating the money because they feel good about where their money's going for. It's not another jacket that will end up eventually in the donate bin or an extra hat. They feel good knowing that 100% of their money is going to a cause that they believe in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And they heard that loud and clear.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think what's also so interesting about this, I know we've been talking about fundraising specifically, but you also hit up the fear of transition earlier and the fear of change. And I'm sure it's going to still be going on when I post this episode, but we are smack dab in the middle of a very abrupt transition right now and change of lifestyle with what's going on with COVID-19. And I'm curious, how have you seen the scarcity mindset or the abundance mindset, but how have you seen that play out around you down in Baltimore? Because I know what it's like up here in Philly.
I mean, the toilet paper situation is horrible, but in terms of fundraising, I have to think about that one.
Oh, yeah, I just mean in general, like how have people been reacting? We're stepping away from fundraising right now and just going into general life and
Let's talk about the
scarcity.
toilet paper. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about toilet paper.
um, I can also talk about the run to the wine store last night, which was our scarcity reaction yesterday. We're like, we don't have enough wine in the house. What? So we definitely had the scarcity mindset yesterday, my husband and I. But I think it's been an interesting social experiment, right? How do people react during a time like this? I think most of us haven't lived in a time like this. And I would just encourage people to take deep breaths and just calm down and take a minute to just think it through. We talk about in coaching, there's a stimulus and there's a reaction, right? But in between the stimulus and the reaction, there is the choice, right? We have a choice as to how we're going to respond. I think initially everything happened so quickly with the schools canceling, everything happened very quickly, right? And we're having news reports and everything, and people are just got freaked out. And so I understand that, but we have to take a minute here and choose how to respond with clarity, with thought, with empathy for the greater good. And that's where I want to encourage people to just try to get control of the emotions by just taking a minute, breathing, and thinking more, not just about yourself and your family, but really your communities that you live within. Mm. And we need to not treat this as, okay, winner gets all the toilet paper or all the Clorox wipes or all the hand sanitizer. And I think what I'm happy, and maybe I think you're similar to me, Jenn, is hearing about that guy and his brother in Kentucky, was it Tennessee, who bought all the hand sanitizer and then was going to sell it And then they found him because they were looking at people price gouging. And so kudos to Amazon and others who have cracked down on people taking advantage of the situation. And what brings me great joy is that they basically called him out, shut him down, and then now he's donating all of it.
Yeah.
And
Which is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And that to me is an example of, hey, someone didn't make a good choice, but there are people who are also holding him accountable and saying, nope, you can't do this. And that was heartening to me. And that they've also shut down a bunch of other sellers who tried to do the same thing. And that makes me happy.
Yeah. And especially the fact that, the choice at the time, as you know, in coaching, we say you cannot make a mistake. In any given moment, you make the best decision for you in that moment.
Right.
So at the time, he thought, he did what he thought was right for him. Like,
Mhm.
hey, I can do this, and then I'm going to go sell it and make a lot of money. But, accountability, people shut him down. And now he transitioned from scarcity
Right.
to abundance
Yeah.
and was like, you know what? Now I have all this stuff. What am I going to do with it? I might as well donate it because people do actually need it.
Yes. So that's a good way to reframe it. It's good that there are people out there that are also holding the mirror up, right?
Mhm.
And what choice should you have made in this situation? And understand you're being very gracious too. Say he made what was best at the time, but realized that perhaps that wasn't going to fly.
Right.
But
Right. And there's other things going on where, grocery stores putting in limits. I didn't have a chance to make it to the grocery store until Saturday, and there was a mad rush up here in Philly Thursday through Saturday morning, and by the time I got there, I was grateful that there was still milk on the shelf
yeah.
because everything else, and it was because there were limits put in place, and I know that if those limits weren't there,
Hmm.
I wouldn't, and I have a lot of food allergies, so I have to be very careful about what I buy. It's not like I can be like, "Oh, well, you know what, that I'll just get whole milk today." Like, I have to be very careful about what kind of
Right.
things I consume. So I was like, thank goodness, my oat milk is out, but at least there's almond milk.
Right.
And honestly, there was only like 5 half gallons left. So thankfully, with the limits, I was able to get that. But being able to approach something with gratitude
Hmm.
is huge. And I think, to your point, there's been a little bit of a transition
Hmm.
from the first couple days of shock to where we are now. We're about a week into it, and seeing that at this point now everybody is starting to approach it with gratitude. Like, I'm grateful that we have technology so we can still,
Hmm.
most of us can still work from home and continue our life. I'm grateful that my whole family is together, because how many times are people like, I don't have time to go home and sit down and cook dinner and eat with my family,
Hmm.
and now we're being forced to.
Oh, we're extremely blessed. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm again vehemently agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I don't, I keep thinking of, I asked my husband today, I'm like, how can we get out there and maybe deliver meals to people? I'm trying to find resources for that because we are incredibly blessed. And how can we get out there as a healthier generation? And by healthy, I just mean we're younger and somewhat fit. How can we get out there and help others who are less fortunate than we are? And I think that's important for us to think about in this time too, is how do we take our blessings and share those with others? And it's important for us to think about that. Not just, I think staying home is important and that's the best thing we can do. But if there are ways that we can get out and at least, help get food distributed in a healthy, safe way
Mhm.
to do those types of activities or even donate. Now is a great time to consider supporting a local food bank or others. But, giving what is abundant for you will be a good way to honor that and not be fearful that, oh no, okay, now I can't give anything because I'm afraid of the markets or the recession, or a potential recession. And we need to kind of keep that in check too. I have my own fears, right, about the economy. We all do. But we need to think about focusing on, we're pretty darn blessed. We have enough to take care of us. And perhaps we should think about helping others who don't have what we have.
Yeah. No, I think, spot on with that comment. And I'm starting to see a lot of people rally behind small businesses
Mhm.
because we don't know how long the shutdown is going to be. And this is going to have a huge impact on small businesses, especially small businesses that have brick and mortar. because they have rent that they have to keep paying. I'm fortunate where, I'm a small business, but thankfully I work out of my home.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm already paying my mortgage. It's not a separate building that I have to be mindful of, or inventory that might go bad due to people not being able to step foot out and shop. So, give to causes that you believe in, support small businesses, even if it's buying gift cards now
Yeah.
that you can use later. There's always ways that you can look and say, you know what, I am fortunate enough. I have enough. So how can I support the people that don't?
Oh yeah. It's, the gratitude point. I just want to go back to that too. You mentioned my mother and father who are in their 70s. They are obviously social distancing, but their church, like many others, are live streaming uh,
Mhm.
church services. And my mom said on Sunday morning it was a really great sermon, and they talked about gratitude and in this time of fear and focusing on what's going well. And my mom said the recommendation was just to write down, and I'm sure, and we've both heard this before, but it was good to hear it from my mom. And the pastor said, write down what you're grateful for every day and put it in a jar.
Mhm.
And then you can go back and read them at some point in time, maybe at the end of the day or end of the week or whatever. But my parents started doing that. And I think it's fantastic. And I think it's something that to think about in this time. And I know your previous blog post was about gratitude in this uncertain, scary time. And I think it's something that I want to start implementing today is just to say, I'm grateful that I do work from home and that I have the technology to be able to do that and not really allow an interruption. And I'm grateful that my family's safe and healthy. And
Mhm.
focusing on that gratitude will help us get through this. I'm also grateful for all the Facebook Live and all the Instagram Live opportunities people are doing to, get people up and dancing and moving and exercising. Our gym had to close down, but they send us a link about, well, here's some exercise classes that you can get online. I'm loving this, right?
Mhm.
It's, I'm grateful that people are thinking not just closing something, but saying we have to close because we care and obviously it's mandated, but here are some alternatives for you. It's awesome.
And how beautiful is it? I'm sure it's hit your social feed as well. But how beautiful is it when you look at the videos from Italy and Spain and all over the world where they're beyond in the thick of it at this point, and you see them out there, everybody on their own patios singing in harmony and doing group workouts from a distance. And just as scary as this time is, how much it has really brought us together
Yes,
as a
agreed.
community and really made us self-check what is truly important to us.
So true.
And there's so much to be said about having something a really tough situation smack you in the face and say, "Ooh, pause.
Hmm.
What are our core values? Let's really come back and just check in." And at the end of the day, health, family, community, and that sense of bonding is really what it's all about. And when you have that, you have enough, which is abundance.
Yes, it's so true. It is, abundance isn't about more, right? It's about we have enough and that is good. And it isn't about accumulation and hoarding things, right? It's truly about not only having enough to take care of your needs, but also just knowing that you are enough.
Yeah.
To your earlier point, and we have enough. We have the ability to connect in a variety of ways. You think about this compared to the Spanish influenza, and I know we've had more recent diseases like H1N1, but you think about what we have even since then, since the Spanish influenza and H1N1, but with social media, with technology. I think one of my coworkers who's in Nebraska, I think she and I are going to plan like a Skype meeting, a happy hour to have fun and catch up.
Mhm.
I mean, we have the ability in this situation to still connect with people. And what a blessing is that? They didn't have that even probably in 2003 that was easily accessible.
Mhm.
So I almost feel like social media and technology have prepared us for something like this. It's kind of interesting how you see it play out, but
Yeah.
a lot of good.
Absolutely. Um, we are coming up on time. So before we wrap up, I know we've kind of talked about a lot today, but if you had just one piece of advice for anyone that either wants to live a life of abundance or live a life of greater, what would that be?
I do believe it's living in the present. Stay present. Stay present to the people around you. Stay present to what you have. Don't look at the past and don't worry about the future. It really is about being in the moment right now. And this moment has a lot of opportunity. And I think there's going to be a lot of really cool outcomes from this really horrible situation. I mean, and I say horrible because, people are dying, and it's obviously people are losing loved ones, and that's really hard. But there's going to be a lot of goodness that comes out of this, I do believe. And let's just be in the moment and take the opportunity to be present to our families and our friends in the variety of ways that are available to us, and take a moment. It's almost like taking a knee right now. We can focus on some different things that maybe we haven't been able to do because we're working in the rat race, and this is slowing us down. And it's slowing us down to be present and to focus on what's important. And there's a lot of goodness in that. And I'll be curious to see what comes out of this pandemic. So I say positive thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And the only thing we can control is who we are right here in this given moment. So
how we respond, right? So we
yeah,
have choices, everyone. You can choose how to respond to this. And I encourage everyone to choose positivity, gratitude, and that opportunity mindset.
yeah. Awesome. Elise, thank you so much for joining me on the Conshy Coaching Podcast. I'm sure we could go on for another 2 hours, but I'm going to, for the sake of our listeners, I'll just invite you back on a future episode because there's so much more that we can talk about, not only about this topic, but about a bunch of other topics as well. So thank you so much for being with me today.
I've loved it, Jen, as always, and I've had a blast talking with you, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and be on your podcast. Well, we're number 7, right? And that's a good prime number.
It is a good prime number.
I'm pretty excited about it.
That was episode 7 of the Conshy Coaching Podcast. If you'd like to connect with Elise Krikau, I have included her contact information in the episode notes. If you'd like to learn more about mindset and energy leadership coaching, please subscribe to my channel and join my weekly email list so that you never miss an episode or a blog post. Thanks for listening, and have a wonderful day.